welcome to Inspiration Hour, which is one of our favorite new virtual offerings here at Rise, because it gives us the opportunity to get together and have really intimate, nice conversations with incredibly impressive women. And Komal is certainly one of those. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kate Wiegmann. I'm the COO of Rise Collaborative Workspace. And it's a pleasure for me to welcome our guest today, Komal Goyal, who is the managing partner of 6E Technologies. And so in true Rise keeping, we like to start all of our interviews in the same way, which is as a way to really get to know who we're interviewing in a really interesting, fun way, is to ask you, Komal, tell us, what was your first job? And we're not talking first real job, we're talking your very first job. Tell us your first job and then your current job.
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me. Rise is one of our partners for one of the nonprofits that I sit on the board for, and has been a great partner for us. So again, thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation. Hi everyone, I'm Komal Goyal, managing partner of 6E Technologies. The first question that came my way is first job and then the current job. My first job actually was as a tutor. So a little bit story behind it. I was living in a dorm. Every single friend of mine had a boyfriend. And I didn't have anything in the evenings for me to do. So I went to, I was raised in India, and I went to school. My undergrad was in India, and I went to the warden. I don't know if you use this term, you know, the sort of the admin of the dorm. I went to her and I said, I want to do something and I don't have anything in the evenings. Can you point me to the right direction? She says, do you know math? And I was a STEM student. I said, of course, I'm a science student. I know math. She says, will you teach my kids math? I'm like, of course. So for the rest of my college days, I actually, that is what I did. I just taught little kids math and science, and I made money. So that was technically my first job.
That's so cool. That's wonderful. And interesting that, well, and then how has that played out then into your current job? Tell us about your current role at 6E.
Well, you know, when I was little, I never wanted a sibling. I never wanted a younger sibling. And I ended up with a younger sister. I was very impatient. I was one of those people who want to just keep going, and very impatient, you know, like most teenagers are. But I was especially so because I didn't like kids. So that job definitely taught me how to be patient, in general. Working with 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old, because then, you know, after one warden's kids, every warden, because we had a group of 6 dorms around us, like 6 big hostels, and every single hostel had a different admin. So everyone came to know that I was teaching kids in the evening. So they started sending their kids my way. So there was a point where I was tutoring up to 9 kids at a time. Oh my God, that show. That taught me patience. I would have never learned otherwise. So that was a good learning. How I translated that. So I have my oldest is 25-year-old now. She's a scientist, and I'm just gonna connect the bridge from what I learned during my first job to what I became as an adult. My daughter once came to me and said, I would highly suggest you to write a book, How to Raise Kids. You are such a good parent. You should be writing a book about that. So that was my biggest mother. So long story short, but if I had not done that job, to be honest with you, I don't know if I would have learned that kind of patience that are needed with kids.
Yeah, sure.
So right now, I'm actually working as the managing partner of 60 Technologies. I took over this company in 2015 beginning with one employee in the company. We are now about 22 of us. We went from close to $300,000 in revenue to $3.8 million revenue, doing public sector work mostly. We have public sector clients, including federal clients. So that's what I do. I still pull up my sleeves. I grew up as a programmer, so I still pull up my sleeves and get into solutioning, which I actually personally really like, but I've been told to stay out of that because I slow down the process.
Oh
so,
gosh.
so the learning never stops, you know?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Gosh. And isn't it the fun of life too? It's at we're never done learning. We're never done growing, which I think
Yes,
is cool.
yes,
Although that's
yes.
painful sometimes too.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Especially for me when it comes to technology. It's something I'm learning about exponentially here during this time. Um, well, so to that end, so you talked about your first job, you talked about how it's helped you and how you've grown during that time, and then your incredible company that you're doing now. Well, actually, too, I'd love for you to touch on the nonprofit as well that you do. You've got 60 Technologies, but also the nonprofit that you started. Before we get into
So
other questions, yeah.
yeah, non-profit profit is what connected me with Stacy, by the way, at Rise. So this nonprofit actually supports entrepreneurs across the world, 64 chapters around the world with 20 of them, actually 15 of them in India, rest of them in Dubai, US, and also in Europe. So large organization, actually founded by one of the founders of Sun Microsystems.
Okay.
So it is about a 30-year-old organization. Um, they a couple years ago they got we actually wrote a grant to US State Department, and we won that grant to run workshops for women entrepreneurs in India for 3 years. So that was a large grant that helped around 575 uh, women entrepreneurs in India, to support them, to help them get to the next level of in their entrepreneurial journey. But the outcome of that was, because that program was so successful and such a powerful program, that we actually decided to convert that program and productize it and rolling it out in the rest of the world right now. Unfortunately, because of this pandemic, we have not been able to do the pitch competitions for women. But the whole idea is to get the next generation of women entrepreneurs who are in startup community right now and get them through the journey of uh, scaling up their businesses. So that's what we do.
Amazing. And what's the name of the organization?
TIE, TIE.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you have audiences from all across the country. They check it out in your area. There, you should be able to find chapters around your area.
Yeah, wonderful. I want to make sure, that we share that with everybody so they can try to get involved. That's incredible. And I love it. Well, as I started to say, I was like, well, you talked about your first job and your current job, and you've accomplished so much. It's incredible. So talk to me about, like, how has your definition of success changed throughout the years along that incredible journey?
Well, success, when you're in your 20s, success is different than when you're in 40s, to be honest with you. It does change. Um, but for me personally, success has become more of holistic success,
Mhm.
as opposed to success for me, for my business, for my family. It's holistic success. When I say um, I look for success not just for myself, but success across my leadership team, my employees, everyone who is around me. And that kind of switch happened just very recently, honestly, because I read a lot, and one of the books that was written on Nelson Mandela, the name will come to me, but I don't remember. But I remember what it said. It was success of an individual without the success of community is useless. So
Huh.
that was the gist of what I read. And that kind of touched me to a point where I started thinking success in a very different manner. So success for me is individually where I am as a person. And then if I am at a great place myself, then everything from there on, it starts to kind of flow is what I look at it. So, so success now has a different meaning. Success for me right now is being content, because there are things that I will never be able to change in the world, and
Sure.
I being able to come to um, come to terms with that. I will do my part the best way I can, but I cannot change other people.
Mm.
And being content in and um, and also uh, being mindful of your part is done. If you so success for me is if I have done 100% of my part
Mhm.
and I don't have questions about my role and my effort to it, I consider it success. Whether it turns into a successful or successful outcome or not, I have to detach myself with.
Mm.
Does it
Yeah.
make sense?
It totally does. Yeah, I mean that acceptance, and because I think is huge, and I can totally, remembering in my 20s as well. I mean, don't we wish we had control over the outcomes? And I think just that acceptance, there's a lot of peace
Oh,
and
absolutely,
comes in.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I have read one of the very known um, epics written in India. It's called Gita. I don't know if you've heard of the name Gita. It's all about your uh, humans that have to do. We usually forget it's about being, not being a doer.
Mm.
So just just being content with your part and doing that 100%, because if you look at it, that 5%, so the way that scripture sort of explains this is your the question here was your action, can your action change your destiny?
Mhm.
So if you consider your action changing your destiny, then if you don't do 100% of your action, then whatever it has to happen in destiny is not going to be effective. So you cannot say, I'm going to be content without doing my action. My action is still very important. And I have to be content with the 100% effort I've put into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
And
that makes
so
sense. So
it,
success is how content I am with my own work.
yeah.
Have I done enough?
Yeah. Because no, absolutely. That totally makes sense. Well, and then you referenced, as you said, how it's changed from your 20s to now. In your 20s is when you immigrated from India to the United
US.
States. That's, that's, talk to me about that experience.
Oh,
I'm so
you
blown away.
touched my nerve.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm a storyteller, so allow me to bring in some anecdotes from here and there. So I grew up in a very small town in India, a town um, that was about 200 miles north of New Delhi, which is the capital of India. Very small town. We didn't even have a like higher education institution in that town. So I had to leave that city or that town to go for my higher ed. So funny story. In India, it's very common to get the girls married early on, like 18, 19 years, at least when I was growing up. Now things have changed a little bit. Um, and it's very common to have an arranged marriage still into this day. So for arranged marriages, you actually look into matrimonials. Like you have Match.com here, we have matrimonials come out in the newspaper, on Sunday newspaper. So my mother used to look at that newspaper, and page number 8 used to be non-resident Indians. So the boys who were living outside of India would put a matrimonial on page 8 of Times of India, where you could go and see if you want to find a guy there. So my to look at the newspaper, and she would quickly move forward and say, page 8, we're not even looking at it because it's all non-resident Indians. So that's what the story is. Like, I never thought I'll leave the country, got married, and within 2 years of the marriage, my husband comes back home and says, we're moving to US. I'm like, what? He did not even tell me he's interviewing with a company in New Jersey.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, now to talk about male dominance, right? Not that he is a male dominated, he's not a dominant person, but it's something that's so cultural in India that those things don't even come to their mind, that they need to have a conversation with their wives to sort of tell, this is in my mind, I'm going to do this.
Sure.
So he comes home and he says, I have a job, and we may be moving to New Jersey, and that to be in like 2-3 months. And I'm sitting there. So the first question I asked him, do you have a passport? He says, no. So you can imagine how prepared we were. But coming here, as I said, I grew up with this notion that I will never leave my parents. I will be close to them. I'll be taking care of them. I and my sister are just 2 girls of my parents. And here I am in my mid-20s, ready to move 20,000 miles from my parents. Mm-hmm. So pointless to say, when I came here, I was depressed. I was depressed to a point where I did not like the culture, honestly, because I did not have any friends. I didn't have a job. My husband came here on a work visa, so I technically was on a dependent visa. Mm-hmm. So it felt like I am not making use of what I studied for, what I can do. So it was very depressing, to be honest with you. And I was not gelling with the culture either. So how I found my first job here is another story. But then I started working, and my first job was with GE here in the United States.
Great, amazing. I mean, truly, I just, putting myself in those shoes, I just think it does, as you just pointed out, it takes this strength and adjustment, and it takes a lot, I think, to, as you said, be on the other side of the world from your family and not knowing anyone. I just really admire the strength and the grit and the everything that goes into, into immigrating to another country. It's impressive. And then, as you said, you started this job with GE, and then look at where you are now. And as you said, like, you struggled with that feeling of, I'm not reaching my potential. And I not to put words in your mouth, but I don't think there's any question that you are using your potential and your experience and all of your incredible talents, both between your work with the nonprofit and 6E. It's just really impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what do you think was one of the biggest factors to the success that you found in your career or life? Resilience. Yeah.
Resilience, persistence.
Yeah.
Total persistence, and focus.
Mm-hmm. And is that something that was sort of instilled in you, or is it?
I think resilience is sort of very cultural in our country. If you think about 1.3 billion people, yeah. The fact that you survived and you got to even get education and be in one of the institutes that are, Indian engineering institutes are known worldwide. They produce very good engineers. But competing at that level and going into one of those schools itself, especially when you are being raised in a town where back when I was growing up in that town, they didn't even have, as I said, there were no higher education institutes. So resilience, you just grow with that because it's survival of the fittest. It's as unfortunate as it is, but you really don't have choices. So if you are motivated and you have set your goals, you better be ready to fight. And it just comes um, it just is in our DNA, I guess. So there is nothing special I have done. uh, but I have, one thing I would say that is, uh, i've I've been very, my stubbornness has actually helped me in a way.
Yeah.
I was stubborn, and I'm still stubborn. So I once I think that I want to do something, I will find a way to get that done. Whether I'm doing it or someone else is doing it, I'll get it done.
That's huge. And yeah, and I think so many of the most successful people, I mean, it's like I'm botching the quote, especially because I can't, I'm not thinking on the top of my head of who to attribute to, but it's like, don't ever, ever, ever give up.
Yep.
And that's how you get to the top.
Yep.
I think I've actually been reflecting a lot about resiliency during this pandemic and time at home and the impact that it's going to have on all of us, but especially youth. You talked about how at a young age, you've had to be resilient from a very young age. And it's like, gosh, I think about that as hopefully a positive that could come out of this traumatic time that we're all kind of living through right now is
Yes.
resiliency. And it's not to take away from, I mean, it's really hard times for so many people, but I do think about hopefully, a silver lining and how I can channel that in myself is that resiliency and, never giving up. So, okay. So then thinking of giving up, because I wanted to ask you about your most important failures. I know that giving up wasn't one of them, but I find that failures, that kind of failing forward or failing up, and using failure as a way to teach us and grow, is really, really powerful, especially in some of the successful people. So talk to me about how, maybe what your most important failure has been.
um there are many, honestly. There are many. I won't be able to um put finger on one in general, but I would say, one of the failures that I felt while running this company was being complacent. Or the reason for that failure was being complacent.
Mm.
So when I took over the company 2014 and 15 beginning, we actually went from 300 million to 5 million in less than 2 years. Like it was a hockey stick.
Wow. Yeah.
And um, enjoying the success and just being complacent about, it's not about the current success you have to keep, or current contracts that you have to keep going. And what I did, as I said early on in the conversation, that I grew up as a programmer and I love that kind of work. So I got into delivery mode because I liked that fact that I was working closely with the customer, solving their problems, and I put my eyes off of the sales pipeline.
Yep.
Guess what happened? We came crushing down from 5 million to almost 1.5 million
Wow.
right in 2017. So can you imagine getting to that point and then starting all over again? So that I consider that to be one of the failures, that it took me a long time to even understand what was the problem.
Mm.
My problem was being complacent, thinking that um, once I get to this, once we take the company to this point, my work um, sort of stops.
Mhm.
All that selling I was doing, all the relationships I was creating, because I tried to become I tried to do too many things at the same time instead of hiring someone for delivery, which I should have done right at that time. Hire someone, but I was too controlling in a way.
Yeah.
I was trying to control all the projects that were happening during that time, and became complacent on the sales side. So that was big hurt.
Yeah. But
It
I mean,
hurt me.
that's super common as a leader, and especially when you said like you have a love and appreciation and talent for the delivery part of it and for having your hands in that part of it. And whether that's, men and women or just women, I think it's really a common thing. And so then how did you bounce back from that?
How did I bounce back? Focus again. Focused on, so created what my role should be. I actually hired a business coach, honestly. Had to do that because this is, one thing, as you may also know, and you and Stacy may also talk with each other, is when you are at that level in the company, that place is very lonely.
Mm,
There's no one around you,
yeah.
right? You have to make those decisions. You have to embrace your good or bad decisions, whatever you're doing. Um, and if you are only accountable to yourself, I personally think is not sufficient.
Yeah.
So I actually went out and I hired a business coach, and I asked, where was I making a mistake?
Mm,
And that's, after those conversations, it turned out that I don't even have my role defined as a managing partner.
yeah.
Once that definition came and I created a box around my role, or she helped me create that box around my role, we said, if anything is outside of this role, then I either have to take permission from her, because I was accountable to her, take permission from her. Am I allowed to be in this portion right now because we don't have anyone hired, or find someone within the organization who will take up that role?
Yeah.
And this is a very important exercise, because I tell you, this was not my story. I worked with so many other companies. They say, oh, we went so well in the first 2 years, and then we could not sustain.
Mhm.
And having sustainable growth is very, very important for long term.
Oh, absolutely. No, no question. Um, well, yeah. And then, from a context, from like a time standpoint, talk to me about when that was. When did you, I know you said it already, what year you started, as a manager?
2014 and 15 beginning, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's been a fair amount of time. And so
Yes.
that was like a huge, quick growth, and then the dip, and then,
And now we are being very careful. So another thing that we have learned over the years is, focus is so very important. You
yeah.
can't be everything to everyone. And I think what happens is, especially people like me who grew up in delivery mode, and have to run the company at this level, you do tend to make those mistakes, because that the reason you are in this role is because you did such good delivery, right? And you're being pulled away from delivery because that's what you loved, and this is why you even got into the business. So it's a fight in your head.
It really is. And when I think about really large organizations too, when like you're, identifying talent and trying to find, the future leaders and the future managers, oftentimes you're finding the people that are the highest performers from a delivery standpoint. And it's like, oh, well, they're excellent at the doing. Well, that means they're going to be excellent at management. But it's like, oh my gosh, management is really,
Very hard.
and it requires it's a lot of either, I think companies that have figured that out, hopefully, is they need a ton of training and to
Oh,
become a good
oh
manager.
yeah.
I mean, I think we can all think of terrible bosses that we've had. And then I can think about ways that I've been a terrible boss because, and then the learning and development and things that I've done. So I think that's really true what you hit on for sure.
And that kind of education never stops. I enrolled myself to get an executive MBA from tuck, then I am right now enrolled in continued leadership education at Northwestern Kellogg. So the idea of finding an accountability partner and then learning at the same time is not novel, but for our side of the companies, it's very, very important because we tend to get pulled into the things that we need to kind of detach ourselves from, and also sort of create that the acumen within the organization where we can depend on our people.
Hmm.
Because if I'm going to continue doing everything, then I'm not showing trust in my people.
Hmm.
That's not a good thing either,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Well, so then as you're talking about bringing on additional people, I find hiring to be really hard. What sort of lessons have you learned, with the hiring that you've done and how to build out a successful team to build a successful and sustain a long-term successful company?
So if you look at our team, it's a very interesting, I would say, demographic, if you will.
Mhm. That's great.
Um, so there is one group of very young people who started with us as interns,
Hmm. Cool.
and they're growing with the company. And then the other group of people that we have are all very seasoned people that I have worked with in the past at some point, because my personal experience in the industry is about 20 years, about 18 years. So I had this network. And once I told these people, the people who are working with us right now, once I said I'm going full time running the company, I actually were asked if they could join us. So I didn't even have to interview. So right now, our core team is either the interns who started in 2014-15 and grew with us, or very seasoned people. Right now, what we do for hiring new talent is we really make sure that if we are bringing someone in the company, someone within the company knows someone who knows someone. So
Yeah.
very reference oriented workforce. That kind of just, that whole idea of 6 degrees of separation. I really think that works because the trust goes really high right up front. Because if my senior consultant says, hey, I have someone who's looking for a job and I have worked with her or him in the past, if we have an opening, would you consider? I would not even interview that person because it's coming from, for example, Lori,
Mm, yeah.
right? So I have actually not figured out as of yet what will we do when we become from 22 to 48 to 104. I have not thought about it yet, but that's something isn't behind in the back of my mind. I can't answer that question. How will I do that? But so far, this has been our approach.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, I'm sure it's only a matter of time before you guys are going to be doubling too. So
Yes, it seems like, yeah, you're right.
yeah. Well, and then, you mentioned your business coach, and how transformational she or he has been to you. I've worked with business coaches as well, and it's hard because their job is to give you feedback. And then also as a leader and as a manager, you get feedback from your employees and your business partners and everyone. And sometimes I think part of maturity and as a leadership leader is learning to handle and internalize that feedback and then do something with it. But it doesn't mean it always feels good. So in your experience, how do you manage or incorporate tough feedback when you get it?
So, it's kind of a mindset. Mm, so when I'm ready to sit down with my coach, or when I have that coaching session, so we'll take this as two questions. One is with my coach, that the feedback, and the other one is with my team. The feedback from the team. Um, so with my coach, before I sit down for the session, I do have this mm, moment of stopping myself and sort of running the scenarios through my head, because I do believe that you yourself know the best you can know yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's no one else knows you better than yourself.
Yeah.
Only if you are open to listening, if you're open for introspection.
Right.
So 90% of the time before the session, I know she's going to say this
Yeah.
or say that. So that doesn't come as a surprise to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I am ahead of her and then telling her that I know this is a mistake or this is how I should have been behaving, but I'm having a hard time
Yeah.
because I am struggling with X, Y, and Z. It's a very open conversation.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, it's not like I'm not allowed to have that kind of open conversation with my team, but I have to be a little bit more careful in how um, I have those conversations with my people. But I have been open to constructive criticism right when I was very little, even. I'll give you one example. When I was going through that phase where I pulled myself into delivery, one of our senior consultants, she actually called me at night once and she says, "You're micromanaging this project. This is not your project. This is my project. The success is on me, not on you.
Wow.
If I am falling, you let me know.
Yeah.
You don't have to get into every meeting, every conversation." That was an eye opener, honestly. And I stepped back. So I think one word I can, summarize this in is openness. Be open to what people are saying and not take it personally. That's very, very important. It's not about me as a
Yeah.
action that needs to change, and I have to detach myself from that.
Yeah. 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 Which, yeah, it's a muscle. I think that I've certainly found I've had to, and comes, as you said, also to that Trishan from 20s to 40s too. It's like,
Yes.
it's easy, I think not taking things quite so personally all the
Yeah.
time. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
it's about you, but yeah, no, I totally see that.
Because your action is not you, right?
Yeah.
You can do the same action, but in a different way. So action can be detached from you as a person.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 It's not a quality
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understood the first time. Yeah. No, I totally see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, no, man, this is, yeah, I'm going to do a lot of introspection and reflection after this conversation. This is awesome. So, I mean, I know you've got so much on your plate and you no doubt work super long and tough hours. How do you, and also too, in this time of, social distancing and being at home, how are you keeping your energy and your creativity and your leadership? How are you keeping yourself energized and motivated? How do you stay motivated?
Um, I am a meditation practitioner for the past 19 years.
Wow.
I practice transcendental meditation, TM,
Cool.
and I've been doing that for, as I said, 19 years. My second daughter was not even born. I've been doing this since. Uh, I have to say, meditation changes you. It just completely changes you from inside as a human. That 20 minutes of closed eyes and introspection, or just, managing your breath or paying attention to your inner self and taking it inside, kind of is transformational.
Sure.
Um, I do exercise very regularly, even in this time, because the gyms are closed. I walk about 3 to 4 miles a day, and I don't care if it is Saturday, Sunday. I really have taken time out for my exercise and for my meditation. These are the two things that, even if someone pays me not to do it, I'll still do it.
Mhm.
So you can't pay me to not do my meditation.
Very-
Even if even I travel a lot. I actually travel. It's kind of weird right now for me, but I travel internationally with um, with a Thai team, myself as well, for business as well. I travel quite a bit. And even during those times, I make sure that, meditation is one thing. I can still skip, maybe, when I'm traveling, I may have to skip a day or two of exercise, but not my meditation. I even meditate when I'm on long flights. Very, very important. That's how I keep myself motivated and focused.
Yeah. It's something that it's so funny that you say that. My husband's been really good about integrating that into his life and in creating it into a routine. And I keep downloading. I've got the app Headspace, which has been really good, and I've read some books and things about it. Some of those things that I'm not on a daily thing yet with, but I mean, truly, you're right that it can be truly transformational. You know,
Yes,
hopefully.
yes, it can be. It can be. Again, it's no different than, um, you know, brain is another muscle. You need to pay attention to that
Yeah, yeah, and rest and center and listen.
and listen. Yes.
Yeah. So you have been so generous and gracious with your time today. So I want to honor that. But so I want to jump to our last question, one of the questions that we like to ask in all of our interviews. It One of our very favorite quotes at Rise is Jim Rohn quote, which is, "You are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with." And you don't necessarily have to list 5, but I really, the more I think about, I mean, it's so true. When you think about the 5 people that you spend the most time with, their influence that they have on you. So I'm curious about how your 5 have impacted your life, and or who are 5, 1 to 5 people that have been truly influential for you in your life.
So one of the first name I would take is my husband. His so uh, if I'm the one who's kind of flying, he's the one who grounds me.
Ah,
Very important relationship. He's the one who, if I'm frustrated, if I am depressed, if I am being hard on myself, you know, being a high achiever is can be almost um, damaging to you as a person,
mm,
because then you become a critic of yourself, like, I didn't do this well, I could have done this better. So running those things by him grounds me and gives me a different reality and different perspective. That's one person I would say definitely is shaping who I am right now. Growing up, it was my dad. um, if Oh boy, if it was not for him, I probably would have been married at 17, 18, and would be living in India right now. And another person I really want to talk about is one of our board of advisors. He's in contract manufacturing. His name is Bhavnesh Mathur. I can't thank him enough. If you go to our website, you will see him as one of our board of advisors. He is another person who has accomplished so much. So I just learned by just conversations, just talking to him. And he was my president at the time. He was running Thai Denver. So that's how I met him. And then I brought him to our board of advisors. So he's another person who's transformed the company. The last company he was with, he took that company from 400 million to a billion in 4 years. So really, really
yeah, a
accomplished.
good one to learn from. And having
Yeah, 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 exactly. So I gave you 3 people.
That's good. That's awesome. Well, and one of the things I noticed too is that they're all 3 men, and I think that's so important and key. Rise is a female-focused community, but it's so important to have advocates. I mean, I always like to draw a distinction. It's like it's about all of us, and so I think that's incredible, and I love hearing that. And I'm so grateful that you shared all those stories, both about those three people, and then also that just your generosity of time and your vulnerability and honesty about the ups and downs throughout your life and career. So I'm grateful that you took the time to join me and all of us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Of course. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to staying in touch and talking to you soon.
Thank you. And stay safe, please.
Thank you, you too.